Cobham Hall in Kent is one of England's greatest Elizabethan mansions. It's now a school, but it was once the home of the fabulously wealthy Darnley family. In its grounds lies a tiny jewel of a building, built 200 years after Cobham Hall, but today sadly derelict. It's difficult to picture it now, but this was once a dairy, producing butter and cheese for the main house. In a time before refrigeration, it was essential that this building stayed cold. In 2016, historic buildings charity the Landmark Trust decided to rescue the little dairy. And over 3 years, they've managed to fundraise £1 million to acquire and completely overhaul the building and turn it into a place that anyone can rent to stay in. The scaffolding has gone up and initial work has started. And today, historian and head of the Landmark Trust, Anna Kay, has come to assess the scale of the challenge ahead.
This little tiny building has been standing derelict for over a century. And after a long time, we're finally about to start work on site.
From the outside, the building appears to have 2 levels. But the original architect's plans show it was always a single-storey building. At its heart was the dairy chamber, where Lady Darnley would have personally supervised the production of butter and cheese for the main house.
So this is the main space in the dairy. It was a really ornate room, and we've got quite a lot of that still survives here. So this is this wonderful plaster work, which you can still see was formed into these fabulous sort of Gothic openings. There was a shelf that ran all around the sides of the room, which was made of marble, and bits of it still surviving there. And that's where great shallow dishes were placed, where the milk could settle and the cream could be skimmed off the top. It was a light, bright space, finely appointed and decorated.
When the walls and ceiling are finished, the marble shelves will be reinstated, just as they were 200 years ago. The dairy sits just a few hundred yards from the huge Elizabethan mansion, Cobham Hall. But almost 200 years later, parts of the big house were redesigned by the superstar architect of his day, James Wyatt. And it was Wyatt who also designed an elaborate little dairy for Lady Darnley.
The building was built as a dairy, and that's a very particular structure which existed on country estates in the 18th century, which is where milk from the herd, cattle herd somewhere else, was taken and turned into all the different dairy products like butter and cheese and cream.
The dairy was the domain of Lady Darnley herself. She probably wouldn't have done the actual work, but would have come in her fine silks, possibly with visiting friends, to supervise the work of the dairymaid. The Darnley family was immensely wealthy, so they could afford to employ the architect, James Wyatt. And it's his original drawings that will be used to restore this tiny Georgian gem. All that remains of the dairy today is a simple red brick building. But when it's finished, it will be utterly transformed back into the Gothic-style work of art that James Wyatt designed. With stained glass windows, vaulted ceilings, church-like crosses, and an expensive copper-sheeted roof. More like a chapel than a working dairy.
When these buildings survive, we have a responsibility to care for them and to hand them on.
The Landmark Trust's decoration and furnishing expert, John Evitts, is also on site to meet Anna.
One of the wonderful things about my job is that nothing is ever the same, and it's great being involved in all these things, and it's very flattering having the privilege of making a lot of the decisions I have to make.
As well as being responsible for designing the interior, John also wants to make sure the outside matches the colour of the original building.
So I think this is the only surviving patch of the Wyatt patent tiling.
John has been doing colour tests on some of Wyatt's original slates.
It's brilliant that this one bit does survive so we can see how it all works.
The slates help to keep the dairy building cool, and surviving patches of paint show they were a sandy white colour to help reflect heat away from the building.
This hasn't got the sandiness in it. I mean, there's sand that's going to be
No,
mixed.
because there was thought that they painted it first, then threw the sand at it, and then painted it again. Whereas if you mixed a very fine sand into it to start with, I think you'd get a much more stone-like appearance.
The painted tiles also gave the impression that the whole building was made of stone, a much more expensive material.
Well, this is the one I would favour.
Yes. Well,
I hope you agree.
there's a right answer to that question.
Yes.
John's choice is a near exact match for Wyatt's original colour. Surrounding the central dairy at ground level, the 18th century plans show a narrow suite of rooms. To the left was the dairymaid's bedroom, and above that, a scullery. The three other sides were left as open cloisters. Once finished in fine plasterwork, they now lie derelict. But incredibly, some of the original building material remains. And in keeping with the ethos of the Landmark Trust, Anna wants to save and reuse as much of it as possible.
These are the original plaster vaults and ribs that were designed by James Wyatt. And this is almost like a fantasy stage set built in the 18th century of what the Middle Ages were like. So instead of being carved from stone, it's made from an internal structure of wood and nails and formwork that's then plastered over and then scored out so it looks like stone.
It's now early spring, and the work to restore the dairy is fully underway. Sturdy wooden frames have been made to form the shape of the new ceilings.
Okay, so flipping it over. This is our arch ceiling. It's been made off-site. They're based on Wyatt's design. We've pretty much matched the existing, what was there originally.
The construction team want to save as much of the original work as possible, but some of it is just too rotten.
We've got it up into the ceiling area. We now need to make sure it aligns with the old ceiling, get it into the right position. We've got it up in the air, which is the main thing.
Working out exactly how the ceiling once looked is one of the team's biggest challenges. But luckily, not only do they have the original architect's plans, they also have a unique template to work from. 300 yards away in the main house, Cobham Hall. Anna's joining master plasterer Philip Gaishes to take a closer look at the plaster ceiling James Wyatt added to the main house.
There's a couple of bosses here actually that we drew some good inspiration from. So we have the leaves and we've used the spiral design from these here so that we end up with an inspiration of this, but not a copy.
Back in the tiny dairy, Philip will use the exact same plastering techniques that would have been used over 200 years ago. Almost all the original ceilings have rotted away. But there's just enough left to give the team clues about the architect's original design for the lath and plasterwork they now need to rebuild. 3 weeks later, the wooden ceiling frames are now in place, and coarse wooden slats known as laths have been painstakingly nailed in place. Anna's back on site to see the start of the plasterwork ceiling, one of the most time-consuming and complex elements of the dairy restoration.
There's very few surviving fragments of the original work, so we all felt we should conserve that wherever possible.
In the central dairy room, 15 feet up on a scaffold, master plasterer Philip is starting to create the vaulted ribs, like the ones in Cobham Hall. Each one will be slowly built up with the exact same materials used by the original craftsman. A mixture of plaster of Paris, sand and lime, and horsehair.
We're pushing this onto the ceiling. It's also oozing through the laths and hooking over the back of the laths. They're called the keys, and that's the mechanism that will anchor the plaster to the ceiling.
Knock, knock.
Come in.
Hi.
Anna has come to see how the ceiling ribs are actually created.
It's lovely seeing that rib being formed there, Philip. So just talk me through how what the stages are that get us to that.
So we need to make a running rule that follows the shape of the timber vaulting.
Yeah.
That's what you can see in place here. And then we run a running mould.
Oh, there it
on
is.
So here it is.
That's wonderful to see. So that hole there is the shape of the plaster
that's the profile.
element that you are creating.
Yeah, that's the profile of the mould.
Isn't that great? Look, this is showing us here the shape that we're trying to get in plaster to form your ribs.
Yes.
Philip slowly builds up the plaster on the rib, running the mould through each time. Gradually, the vaulted rib starts to take shape. The ceiling spaces between the ribs will be plastered later.
If we look at an Elizabethan or a Jacobean ceiling, the thing we really like about it is the imperfection. There is beauty in imperfection, thankfully.
Luckily for all of us.
Just like 200 years ago, all the plasterwork will be painstakingly done by hand. With dozens of ceiling bosses, vaulted ribs and other elaborate features, as well as the walls, it will take Philip and his small team 6 months to complete. Keen to keep the authentic look and feel of the original, Anna's come to stately Audley End House in Essex to visit a dairy built just a few years before the one at Cobham.
Oh, it's nice to be back here again, isn't it?
With food historian Annie Gray.
So do you think that these shelves, they were specifically for having these settling dishes on?
Oh, yes. I mean, you can see from the size of the settling pans, and it's into these that the milk would have been put morning and evening after the milking of the cows, and then the cream would be allowed to settle, rise to the surface, and the dairymaid would simply skim off the cream from the top so that she could turn that into butter. This wasn't a play space where you made 500 grams of butter and it all looked beautiful and that was it. These were spaces that were turning out kilos of butter every week.
Churning cream to make butter and cheese for the big house was an important function of a Georgian dairy. Overseen by the lady of the house, Cobham Dairy produced hundreds of kilos every year.
The physical work of actually churning wouldn't have been something that the average lady, I suspect, would have wanted to get herself involved in. The dairymaids had to be literate. They had to be very, very good at keeping records because this wasn't an unskilled job. This was really something that bore a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And of course, the dairymaids were in sometimes daily contact with the mistress of the house, so they had to be very presentable, very respectable, and have a much better character, perhaps, than some of the other servants.
After straining off the buttermilk, the butter itself could be shaped and moulded for presentation in grand dining rooms.
Dairies really do tie together aristocratic beauty with the sheer hard graft that went on. To me, they're one of the most amazing spaces in any country house.
For Anna and her team, the challenge now is to recreate the feel of a working dairy back at Cobham. In the beautiful Kent countryside is a tiny abandoned building. Built in 1795 by the aristocratic Darnley family, this was once the dairy for the main house, Cobham Hall, and would have been managed by Lady Darnley herself. Rescued by historic buildings charity the Landmark Trust, it's undergoing a complete restoration, inside and out. The dairy has no electricity, running water, or sewage system, and needs many months of skilled craftsmanship. The final bill will be £1 million.
This is a very exciting day at Cobham because I haven't been to site for a few weeks and the building is now changing. The outside is now beginning to get the slate cladding that's going to transform it from a brick building into what will look like a stone building. So it's a pretty exciting day.
Amazingly, some of the original slate tiles which helped keep the dairy cool have survived.
These slates were cut by people in 1790 when George III was on the throne and the French Revolution was happening. This is stuff that's been with us for hundreds of years, and it matters to reuse it.
Many of the original slates have already been reused to reclad the upper level.
Well, this is really exciting because we've been talking about the finish on this building for ages. And of course, we're not there yet because this is the material, but we've still to give it the unifying coat of paint that will disguise the slate as stone.
With the upper part of the building starting to take shape, the team can now turn their attention to more down-to-earth problems.
So out here we have the floors of Cobham Dairy. However, we're missing a bit of it here, so the challenge here is to match this stone, hopefully of the same geology.
Once again, the team will be reusing as much as possible of the original stone to bring the patterned dairy floor back to life. Up on a scaffolding in the main room, the vaulted ceilings are starting to take shape. The beautiful hand-formed ribs are complete.
Yeah, and then this is one part.
The plastering team can now turn their attention to the details, starting with the elaborate ceiling bosses. Philip's colleague, Anna Castilla, has made sketches based on the work of James Wyatt, the architect of Cobham Dairy.
We're doing a design inspired of what we saw in Cobham Hall because it was done all about the same time.
With over 20 ceiling bosses to make in the dairy, Anna Castilla's work will continue for many weeks. Philip, meanwhile, can start the deceptive and magical process of turning plaster into stone.
Plaster was used quite heavily to pretend to be something it isn't. Now we're using plaster to pretend that we've got a Gothic stone vaulted building like a cathedral.
Using the exact same technique as 200 years ago, Philip uses a simple blunt blade to score lines into the dry plaster. Enough to fool the eye into thinking it's cut stone.
And that's the power of plaster. You can make it look like anything. Et voilà.
Over the next few weeks, work at the dairy continues at pace. The brick building is getting its outer coat of slate tiles that will eventually be painted to look like it's made of expensive sandstone. All carefully designed by one of the great architects of his time, James Wyatt. And Wyatt didn't just limit his work to little dairies like Cobham. He also designed on a truly grand scale. And this is his masterpiece. Ashridge House in Hertfordshire, almost entirely designed by Wyatt, just 15 years after Cobham. But Cobham Dairy and Ashridge House have something important in common. They're both fine examples of the Gothic revival in Britain. The 18th century fashion for making buildings look like they were built in the Middle Ages. Anna's come to Ashridge to find out more.
Hello.
With architectural historian Dr. Roger Bowdler.
This is quite a spot to meet in, isn't it?
I think it's probably the most romantic space in England. It's just epic. What's so special about Ashridge and James Wyatt's mastery of Gothic is it becomes the mainstream style in romantic England.
There's one example of Wyatt's work at Ashridge that has a particularly strong connection with Cobham Dairy.
It's lovely standing here because obviously our little dairy is pretending, if you like, to be a little chapel, but actually here where Wyatt is building a chapel and is doing it in the Gothic style, it's like all those things have been realised on a full scale, so it's done for real and not just as a plaything, which the dairy is really.
Anyone seeing the dairy, they saw the battlements, they see the arched windows. Straight away they're thinking about the Middle Ages. They're taken to a realm of fantasy. One little building and off they go.
It's lovely, isn't it? There is a magic to that, I think. Still, actually.
At Ashridge House, James Wyatt was able to indulge his passion for Gothic architecture on a magnificent scale. But even at tiny Cobham Dairy 15 years earlier, Wyatt was already trying out the same Gothic style, with church-like windows, imitation battlements, and vaulted ceilings. And in the coming weeks, John Evitts will be travelling to Italy to replace the beautiful marble shelves
This is statuary, exactly the best quality of marble we have here.
that were once at the very heart of Wyatt's Gothic dairy. Deep in the Kent countryside lies a tiny Georgian dairy. Once derelict, it's now undergoing a total restoration, inside and out. It's now early summer, and work has already been going on for 6 months.
We now need to make sure it aligns with the old ceiling.
For the Landmark Trust, an important principle is to reuse as much of the existing building material as possible. In the main entrance, the entire floor has been relaid using the very same 10-kilo Portland stone slabs from over 200 years ago. And on the upper level of the dairy, only original slates have been used to clad the walls. But there aren't enough for the whole building, so they'll need hundreds more from the same Welsh quarry that was used 200 years ago. And in the main room, a chiseled-out horizontal slot in the wall shows where another original material is also missing: the marble shelves used to keep the dairy milk pans cool. Money was lavished on this tiny building, so the architect James Wyatt could demand the very best marble from Carrara in northern Italy. Interiors expert John Evitts has come 50 miles north of Pisa to see where it comes from. John's joining local marble expert Filippo on a trip up into the mountains.
So, Filippo, where are we off to now?
We are going on top 1,000 meters, the maximum extraction point for the marble today, okay? Exactly there, on top. We will go to watch the typical Carrara marble we have here, white and grey.
White and grey. I love the way you use the big blocks just as building blocks.
Just for building, you know, protection.
It's the scale of the blocks that I find absolutely fascinating. They're huge, aren't they?
And it's not just the blocks that are huge. 100 years ago, the two marble faces of this mountain were once connected.
Just let me understand this.
Yeah.
Are you saying to me, but this was a straight line through there?
Straight line.
So
Straight
this was
line
just...
here in the middle, okay?
It is absolutely astonishing to think that if I was stood here, I'd be looking at a hill.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything in between, many millions of tons of marble, has since been quarried out.
It's just astonishing, isn't it?
These days, huge machines are used to cut the marble out of the mountainside. But at the time Cobham Dairy was built, this whole process would have still been done by hand.
Are there different parts of the quarry where you get different qualities of marble?
Of course. For example, here we have a Bianco Carrara. White on the base with a few grey veins in the middle.
Okay.
That one is the iron part in the marble.
So that's impurities, is it?
Yeah,
So
impurity, exactly.
The very best marble is almost perfectly white, with hardly any impurities, like the stone used for Michelangelo's David. But at £500 per square metre, that may well be beyond John's budget.
So this is a statuario, which
This
is
is the
almost pure
statuario.
white. And that's very, very expensive.
It's very, very expensive.
And
by
then
the way.
this
the
one-
Statuarietto.
Statuarietto.
Statuarietto is like a son of the Start wild.
Isn't that lovely? And this has got the veins in it,
More veins.
but is also quite expensive and is mainly used for statuary.
Yeah.
But it's really would be quite extravagant to use this for dairy shelving, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
This is Bianco Carrara.
Bianco
okay?
Carrara, yeah. The normal white.
And this has just got veining, it's just not quite so white, it's a little grey.
Little grey because there is more part of carbon inside. It's a very good quality of marble as well.
And this is what is coming out from here.
Exactly from that mountain in front of you.
So I think this one will look fine.
Bianco Carrara, why not? It's a standard size for us.
Okay, that'll do.
Beautiful as well, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to you for coming, yeah? Thank you.
And I'll keep this one.
Of course, it's a present
As
for
a
you.
little souvenir.
Of course, I give you the cheaper one anyway, I keep the expensive one.
The Carrara marble will be carefully cut and shaped specifically for the shelves at Cobham, where the list of jobs still to do is huge.
I haven't been to Cobham for 6 weeks and summer has begun.
When the Landmark Trust took on the dairy, another expensive original material was missing. Up on the roof.
Oh, look at this. So we've got the copper roof. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's done a lovely job there, this gutter.
In the 18th century, a copper roof was a huge investment. But because it's lighter and more durable than zinc or lead, copper was architect James Wyatt's first choice. And Anna's team want to stay faithful to the original finish, even if it costs hundreds of pounds a square metre.
We're only really using copper at the moment on listed buildings or heritage buildings.
Yeah.
Now they're going for the cheaper zinc, which still comes up with a nice look, but obviously traditional copper is always my favourite.
For master roofer Richard, the restoration of Cobham Dairy is a rare chance to use a material he loves.
I like to see copper, and over the years it sort of grows character. This will go through 30 years of colour change. It'll go from bright shiny down to a darker, and then after about 15 years it'll start getting lighter and lighter and lighter until it's light green. There's plenty of jobs in London that I still drive past today on the way to work and I go, yeah, that does, it's looking better every year.
One of the driving principles of the Cobham Dairy project is to reuse original materials and crafts wherever possible.
Knock, knock.
Come in.
Work on the main ceiling has been going on for 4 months.
Wow.
Welcome.
And Anna's about to get her first look at the new Gothic-style plaster finish.
Welcome.
It's like a fairy tale up here.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
With the vaulted ribs complete, Anna Castilla can now work on the ornate ceiling bosses.
So tell me about how you've done these.
We have this method called wet casting.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to make one lift so you can see the process. This is fiber lime, which is lime putty with loads and loads of fibers.
Yeah.
Then we put them into the mold, which will give us like a rough shape and size of this acanthus leaf. Yeah, you need to just be careful.
Yeah.
And see, it just gives me a start point.
Yeah.
Then I just stick it on and kind of give it the shape. As it stiffens up, I give it more detail.
This would have been what 18th century plasterers, who often were from Italy or from Spain, working in England, would have been doing. And now you are...
Yeah, it's quite a magic thing. Someone like me was doing exactly the same thing in the same place.
Three weeks later, and the interior has already been transformed. But the team still need to turn it from an historic artifact into somewhere people would like to stay. The dairy will be available for holidaymakers to rent in a few months' time. And with the outside scaffolding now removed, work can properly start on the rest of the building. In the heart of the Kent countryside, The project to restore tiny Cobham Dairy is now well over halfway through. It's now early autumn, and head of conservation charity the Landmark Trust, Anna Kay, is back on site today to check on the latest progress. The team have started relaying the latticework floor in the main room.
Morning.
Morning. Doing all right?
Wow, you've done absolute masses. So how long have you been at this for?
This is our second day now.
That's pretty good. So you did all this yesterday, did you?
Yeah.
One day?
Yeah.
When the Landmark Trust acquired the dairy, about a third of the original patterned floor was missing. But after careful research around UK quarries, they managed to find replacement stones that almost exactly match the originals. Now they're mixing and matching the old with the new.
It might be tempting to think, oh, maybe we'll keep all the old ones together and then do a new section, but actually it would have been such a mistake, wouldn't it? Because the contrast would have been really stark, whereas actually it is...
They're all a good match, so they're pretty... It's blending in quite well, I think. Yeah.
Well, all the trouble that you guys took to get the match has really paid off.
The weather in the last few weeks has been kind, and a big digger has been brought in to scrape and level the area that was disrupted by building work. Soon it will be reseeded with grass. But Anna's mind is on what happens next inside the dairy.
You could be mistaken for thinking that this room is pretty much done, but crucially, it isn't done, because up here you can see in the window openings, we've just got some temporary glass that's just to keep it dry in here. And that's going to be the next stage.
Nothing remained of the old windows at the dairy. And there's not enough detail on the original architect's drawings. So the team will use stained glass windows in the main house as their style guide. And in Deal, on the Kent coast, Anna's come to meet the specialist glaziers recreating the windows.
Hi, John. How's it going?
Just embarking on the drawing for the next batch of the windows.
John Corley's been working as a specialist glass restorer for 40 years. The glass he's using has been specially handmade to make the windows as authentic as possible.
It's like the surface of a sea, isn't it? You've got this sort of a still sea, just very slight ripples in it.
After snapping off glass strips, he can start to form the delicate diamond panes with the help of a strange, antique-looking implement.
It's about 40 years old.
Excellent.
It takes me back to my time at Canterbury Cathedral. This is a fixed angle from the drawing, and the nail is the exact width of the diamonds for our windows.
With 40 windows at Cobham Dairy, each with 40 panes, John needs 1,600 of these little pieces of glass.
And then each one will catch the light just slightly differently.
One of the glories of Cobham Dairy.
It will be.
In the other workshop, John's colleague Marianne has already started assembling the whole window. Carefully inserting the diamond panes into slotted lead strips, each one cut to measure. Around the outside of the clear glass are the slips of coloured orange and blue glass, copied from the huge windows at Cobham Hall.
And these ones are just cut in a similar way, John, to the diamond panes?
Absolutely the same.
Yeah.
Each handcrafted window will be unique, giving the same quality of light as the originals 200 years ago.
Marianne has the tallow here. Mutton fat, tallow, acts as a flux which allows the solder to flow easily.
Once Marianne's finished assembling the windows, there's one critical process needed before they can be fitted into the dairy.
We call it grouting. We have to make sure that it's sealed from the weather.
Oh, wow. You just squeeze it all in.
Squeeze it all in.
The grout is a traditional mix of boiled linseed oil and turpentine, mixed with chalk and plaster. It's a technique that's been used for over 800 years.
It really will find all the little nooks and crannies.
Once the treacly grout has penetrated the leadwork, the job's almost done.
Give it a dusting of some chalk to soak up the linseed oil. There we are.
The grout will need to set overnight before the windows can be cleaned and polished, ready to be fitted. At Cobham Dairy, the restoration work never stops. With the ceilings and walls complete, the next task is to install the marble shelves that will run around the sides.
So this will be all marble worktop round here, because that's how it was originally.
So welder fabricator Alan Collar is fitting the solid metal frame.
Every job I've done seems to be unusual. That's the nature of what I do.
To hold the 100-kilo Carrara marble slabs. With the frame complete,
Right, if I pass it to you, Sam.
Alan has one small but important job left. In the original drawings for the dairy, the architect James Wyatt not only wanted this little brick building to look like it was made of expensive white stone, he also wanted it to look like a little Gothic chapel with church-like windows, a pretend bell tower, and religious symbols.
The original building had 4 crosses on it. These are heavy because they're actually now, they're solid steel. And we should be able to... The threaded spine there, that was positioned in the roof when it was all being built. And then that should just go down.
A week later, and the stained glass windows are ready for fitting at Cobham Dairy. It's a fiddly, specialist process, requiring huge attention to detail. Even though none of the original glass survived, the team are as confident as they can be that this is how the 200-year-old dairy windows would have once looked. Like a miniature Gothic chapel. The next day, Landmark Trust interiors expert John Evitts is on site for an important delivery. But first, a chance to admire the new stained glass.
Looks fantastic, doesn't it? It's quite exciting because they're bringing the marble in today to put around here to make the shelves. It'll be interesting to see whether it's been supplied as per the original spec and how white it is.
Outside in the mud, the specialist marble fitters have arrived, ready to haul in shelves on their specially made bogey trolley.
Do you want me to give you a kick?
Is that personally or?
That's it. Bogey's away. Beats Kleenex, doesn't it?
Don't make me laugh.
I have.
With the marble shelves now in position, John's next urgent task is to find some authentic dairy settling bowls to put on them. It's 5:30 a.m.
It's insane, isn't it?
Buyers and sellers are arriving.
Morning.
At Ardingly Antiques Fair in West Sussex.
Not too bad. Bought anything? Sold?
This is one of the biggest antiques markets in the UK. And John's early start gives him the best possible chance to find what he wants.
You haven't got anything from a dairy, you know, to do with milk? Anybody know whose this is?
With daylight breaking, John's luck starts to pick up.
And that's quite nice as well.
From various different dealers, he's starting to find the milk settling bowls he's been searching for.
I mean, you know, Lady Darnley would have had something a lot smarter than this. But, you know, they've got a nice look to them. I just want to cover all those marble shelves with bowls. Of course, they would have been all the same. They'd have all been white. They'd have all had the Darnley crest on. But it would have just looked awfully boring, wouldn't it?
John's early start at Ardingly Market has paid dividends. He finally has some genuine antiques for Cobham Dairy.
I've got that wonderful bowl there, that settling bowl. All those other bowls, we've got more bowls where you can throw a stick at. I think we're bowled out.
It's the beginning of winter. And with the building work finally complete, the race is on for John and his assistant Beau to get the property furnished and ready for its first guests.
How far have you got that end?
I've got about 6 inches.
And putting the finishing touches to the rooms.
That's all right.
It's hard to imagine, but just 12 months ago, Cobham Dairy was in ruins. A derelict red brick skeleton in desperate need of restoration. But now it's been transformed into an historic place to stay. The old dairy room will now be a sitting and dining room. The dairymaid's bedroom and scullery will be the modern bedroom and bathroom. In what were once open cloisters will be the modern kitchen and a lavatory next door. In 3 days' time, it will receive its first paying holiday guests. And Anna's on site for her final visit.
Welcome to Cobham Dairy.
For both John and Anna, it's a chance to reflect on the achievements of the last year. Starting with what was once the rubble-strewn corridor at the back of the building, which is now a stunning Gothic-style kitchen. Even the curtains have been specially printed with an image of the original occupant of the dairy.
Right, and so we've got the bathroom and the bedroom down here, which is, the bed's quite cosy, I have to say.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not a lot of room for dancing a jig. So I think it's going to be very nice, isn't it? Because this is a building that when people book it for a weekend or a few days, it's going to obviously be a couple who are going to do it. And actually, it's got this lovely intimacy to it, hasn't it? The scale of it. And
it's certainly intimate. Yeah. Well, you're going to have to get on.
Yeah.
But the biggest transformation of all has been in the main dairy room.
Blimey!
From the Gothic effect ceiling and walls,
God, what an absolute transformation.
to the chapel-like windows.
Yeah, there's so many things that I'm glad we did, like the stained glass. Look at that up there, Anna. It's just amazing. And they travel like that through the day.
And the authentic Carrara marble shelves.
Well, I think the ceiling's a triumph, isn't it? I love the Chelsea bun there in the middle.
It's absolutely brilliant. The thing is that it's just all a fantasy, isn't it? It's what I love about it. It's just so playful and magical and is like a fairy tale. I just wonder what the dairymaid would make of coming in here now. I suppose the thing she most would have noticed is how nice and warm it is.
Yeah, she'd have been very surprised by the heat, I think.
There's something so wonderfully satisfying and fulfilling about seeing this place now and knowing that its future is secure. To me, that's just priceless.
Having got here, it is fantastically worthwhile. You look at it and you think, yeah, that's why I do it. It's going to have a new life, it's going to be enjoyed, it's going to be loved. And, you know, I'm already thinking about the next project now. I'm off.
For me, the thing that's so wonderful about these projects is that each one of these buildings is a remnant from the past. It's a part of the lives of our ancestors. And you might be tempted to say, why on earth are you spending £1 million on this building? And I feel that it's really worthwhile. You think about the amount of money someone might spend on buying a piece of modern art, and then you look at this place and you see what we've achieved with it and the pleasure that it's going to bring people for generations and generations. And to me, that's so worthwhile, and it feels like the whole reason that we do what we do.